For years, I believed making more money required finding the perfect opportunity. I blamed my circumstances, my lack of connections, even bad luck. Every time I saw someone else succeed, I assumed they had something I didn't. More talent, more experience, or simply better timing. So I kept searching for external answers. A better job, a better business idea, a better economy. But no matter what changed around me, my financial situation barely moved. Looking back, I realized I wasn't trapped by my circumstances. I was trapped by my thinking. The biggest shift didn't happen when I earned more money. It happened when I started questioning the beliefs that had been quietly controlling my decisions for years. I used to think manifestation meant wishing for something hard enough until the universe delivered it. Now I see it differently. Manifestation begins with changing the way you think, which changes the way you act, which eventually changes the results you create. Nothing magical, just a chain reaction that starts inside your mind. The first thing I had to confront was my own self-image. Without realizing it, I had built an identity around struggle. Whenever an opportunity appeared, my first thought wasn't, "This could change my life." It was, "People like me don't usually succeed." That sentence had become automatic. Psychologists call these automatic beliefs core beliefs. They're deeply rooted assumptions we carry about ourselves, often formed by childhood experiences, repeated messages, and past failures. The problem is that your brain treats those beliefs as reality. If you believe you're not capable of building wealth, you'll unknowingly make choices that protect that identity. You'll hesitate before taking opportunities. You'll underestimate your abilities. You'll give up faster than someone who believes success is possible. Nothing outside had to change. My own thinking was already limiting me. The turning point came when I started paying attention to my internal conversations. Every negative thought became a question instead of a fact. Instead of saying, "I'll never make enough money," I asked, "Why do I believe that?" Instead of saying, "Successful people are different," I asked, "What habits do they have that I can learn?" Those questions completely changed the direction of my thinking. I stopped arguing for my limitations and started searching for better answers. At the same time, I realized something else. My daily habits were reinforcing the very mindset I wanted to escape. Every morning began the same way, checking social media, comparing my life to everyone else's, consuming negative news, worrying about bills before I had even started my day. By lunchtime, my brain had already collected hours of evidence that life was difficult. No wonder I felt stuck. If your mind spends every day absorbing fear, comparison, and negativity, it's almost impossible to make confident financial decisions. So I made a simple experiment. For 30 days, I completely changed the information I allowed into my mind. Instead of opening social media first thing in the morning, I spent 20 minutes reading books about business, psychology, and personal finance. Instead of listening to complaints during my commute, I listened to interviews with entrepreneurs and investors. Instead of ending each evening wondering what went wrong, I wrote down 3 things I had learned that day. The results weren't immediate. My income didn't suddenly double. But something much more important happened. My thinking began to change. I started noticing opportunities I would have ignored before. Ideas that once seemed impossible started feeling realistic. Problems became puzzles instead of permanent obstacles. Looking back, I wasn't attracting opportunities through magic. I was finally paying attention to them. Another habit that changed everything was visualization. Not the kind where I imagined luxury cars and expensive houses all day. Instead, I visualized the person I wanted to become. I pictured myself making calm financial decisions, having productive conversations with clients, building valuable skills, finishing difficult projects instead of quitting halfway through. This kind of mental rehearsal has been studied in sports psychology for decades. Elite athletes often visualize successful performances before competitions because the brain activates many of the same neural pathways used during actual performance. I realized I could apply the same principle to my financial life. Every morning, I imagined handling challenges with confidence instead of fear. When those situations eventually appeared in real life, they felt strangely familiar. Not because I had predicted the future, because I had mentally prepared for it. Perhaps the biggest transformation happened when I stopped chasing money itself. For years, every goal I set revolved around income: make more, earn more, save more. But I rarely asked the question that actually mattered. What value am I creating? The people earning the highest incomes weren't simply asking for more money. They were solving bigger problems, helping more people, building better systems, developing skills that others found valuable. That realization shifted my focus completely. Instead of obsessing over what I wanted to receive, I began concentrating on what I could contribute. Ironically, that's when opportunities started increasing. Clients trusted me more. People recommended my work. New ideas began turning into real projects. Money became the result instead of the goal. I also learned that progress isn't always visible. There were weeks when nothing seemed to happen. Days when I questioned whether any of these changes were making a difference. But just because growth is invisible doesn't mean it isn't happening. A seed spends weeks growing underground before anyone sees the first sign of life. The same is true for personal growth. Long before your bank account changes, your habits begin changing. Your confidence changes. Your conversations change. Your decisions change. And eventually, those invisible shifts begin producing visible results. One of the biggest breakthroughs came when I stopped treating fear as a stop sign. For years, every time I considered starting a new project, raising my prices, or investing in myself, fear convinced me to wait. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if people judge me? Those questions kept me trapped in the same place. Then I realized something important. Fear doesn't always mean you're making the wrong decision. Sometimes, it simply means you're stepping outside what's familiar. Growth rarely feels comfortable. Sometimes, it was saying yes to an opportunity I didn't feel completely ready for. Every small action expanded my confidence, not because everything worked perfectly, but because I proved to myself that I could handle uncertainty. Another habit that transformed my relationship with money was gratitude. At first, I dismissed it as another motivational trend. Those moments reminded me that progress wasn't measured only by income. It was measured by becoming a wiser decision-maker. You can't expect different results while repeating the same behaviors. Reading books without applying their lessons changes very little. Watching motivational videos without taking action creates temporary excitement, not lasting progress. Real transformation begins when knowledge becomes behavior. Every lesson I learned had to appear somewhere in my daily routine. If I learned about budgeting, I created one. If I learned about investing, I started with whatever amount I could afford. If I learned a new business strategy, I tested it instead of endlessly preparing. Action became the bridge between belief and results. I also stopped comparing my Chapter 1 to someone else's Chapter 20. Comparison had quietly stolen years of progress. Every time I looked at someone more successful, I ignored the thousands of hours they had already invested. I only saw the finished product. The successful business, the impressive income, the confident speaker. The more useful you become, the more opportunities naturally appear. Every skill you develop increases your ability to solve problems. Every problem you solve creates value for someone else, and value is what people are willing to pay for. That realization changed the way I spent my time. I stopped looking for shortcuts. Instead, I invested in learning, improving my communication, strengthening my discipline, expanding my knowledge, building relationships based on trust. Those investments didn't always produce immediate income, but over time, they created something much more valuable, a foundation that could continue generating opportunities year after year. Looking back, I understand that the greatest change wasn't in my finances. It was in my identity. I no longer saw myself as someone hoping life would improve. I became someone actively creating better outcomes through better decisions. That shift influenced everything. The way I planned my days, the way I responded to setbacks, the way I approached opportunities, even the way I spoke to myself. Eventually, the external results began reflecting those internal changes, not overnight, not through luck, but through consistent habits repeated long enough to become part of who I was. If there's one lesson this journey taught me, it's this: your thoughts matter because they shape your actions. Your actions matter because they shape your habits. Your habits matter because they shape your future. Manifesting more money isn't about convincing yourself that wealth will magically appear. It's about becoming the kind of person who consistently notices opportunities, creates value, manages money wisely, and takes action despite uncertainty. When your thinking changes, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your life begins to move in a different direction. That's how lasting financial transformation happens. Not through wishing, not through waiting, but through rewiring your thinking, one decision at a time,